Hello, welcome to Unit 1, Lesson 4. This is the last lesson in Unit 1. After this, you guys will be having probably a review and then a test. In today's lesson, we're going to be talking all about angle pair relationships. There's quite a bit of vocabulary, terminology that you need to get familiar with for this lesson. So make sure you're reading over your notes carefully because I'm not going to go through everything. And this first part, the two things I want to say, vertical angles, you can read that for yourself, but the main takeaway from vertical angles is that they are congruent, which means they have equal measures if they're vertical. Linear pair, I want to tell you guys that a linear pair, they're equal to 180. So they are adjacent angles that are supplementary. Ran out of space there, so I'm just going to say supplementary. Okay, so they're equal to 180. Here's some exercises you can do on your own, just saying whether the angles are linear or vertical, just saying yes or no. That should be pretty easy, so I'm going to skip over that. If linear pairs are formed by lines, then they create straight angles. What does the angle postulate tell us about straight angles? Well, I told you that earlier that linear pairs were supplementary, and here's an example. We have 60 plus 120, and as you can see, that adds up to 180. Okay. For this bottom diagram, all adjacent straight line angles, so all linear pairs, equal 180. And all vertical angles are congruent. Oh, hold on. Vertical angles are congruent. We got a couple questions related to this diagram that are on the back here. If the measure of angle 1 is 40, then the measure of angle 2 is, well, if we look at angle 1 and angle 2, angle 1, and then angle 2, they're adjacent and they form a straight line, so that means they have to equal 180. They're a linear pair. So if the measure of angle 1 is 40, then the measure of angle 2 has to be 140. Measure of angle 4 is 130, then what is the measure of angle 2? Okay, well, measure of angle 4 is 130. Well, angle 2 is vertical, it's across, so angle 2 would also have to be 130 because they're vertical. Angles 1 and 4. 1 and 4. Well, they're two adjacent angles that form a straight line, so we have a linear pair or supplementary. Linear and supplementary. Angle 2 plus angle 3. I think you guys get the point by now. If they're adjacent and form a straight line, they should equal 180. So they should equal 180, the measure. So anytime you see the M before the angle, measure, it's talking about the number, the measure of the angle. So measure of angle 2 plus measure of angle 3 should equal 180. And the measure of angle 2 is congruent, or angle 2, so this one doesn't have to measure. So angle 2 is congruent, then you know they want an angle. Angle 2 is congruent to, well, if we look here, these measures are the same. So angle 2 is congruent to angle 4. Here we got a couple different types of supplementary and complementary angles, different vocab, different diagrams. Just to recap, I know you guys probably know this, but complementary angles are sum to 90 degrees. And I just told you supplementary angles sum to 180. So complementary 90, supplementary 180. You can have adjacent, so that they're touching, they share a side, or you could have non-adjacent, they don't share a side. Then of course we add a little bit of algebra in, so solve for x at the right, find angle measures. So the only angles we have information about right now are FHI and GHJ. So if we look at FHI and GHJ, they seem to be vertical. They're across from each other, so let's say that they're vertical. So angle FHI and angle GHJ are vertical. Vertical angles are congruent, so that means that they're congruent, they're equal to each other. Okay. So now, since we have expressions for FHI and GHJ, we can just substitute those in. So 7x minus 25 is equal to 5x plus 15. Once you solve, you should get x is equal to 20. Okay. So solve for x, we've done that. But then we also need to find the angle measure. So we need to find all 4 angle measures. We know what x equals, so we can figure out either FHI or GHJ. GHJ seems to be a little easier, so angle GHJ was equal to the expression 5x plus 15. And now, of course, we can just substitute 20 in for x. So we have 5 times 20 plus 15. So GHJ is equal to 115. But we do know that angle GHJ and angle FHI are congruent. So if GHJ is 115 and angle FHI is 115 as well. So here's part of our answer. We have 2 angle measures. GHJ and FHI are both 115 degrees. Okay. Now we have to find the other 2. So we know that GHJ is 115 degrees. That's this. We need to find FHG and IHJ. Okay. Now, if you look carefully, you can see that both of the angles, the blue and the green, are adjacent with the red. So they're adjacent and that they form a straight line. So that means that they're a linear pair. That means they have to equal 180. So let's say FHG in green and GHJ are linear, so they equal 180. So FHG plus GHJ angles equal 180. Well, we know that angle GHJ is 115. So we have angle SHG plus 115 equals 180. So we can just subtract 115, and we get angle FHG is 65 degrees. Okay, so we have this one 65. We know this one is 115 because it's vertical. And then the green SHG and the blue IHJ are also vertical. So this also has to be 65. So we found all 4 angle measures. Now the last page of your notes is just practice for you guys. So this is the end of the video. As always, ask me if you need assistance or help, and then show me your answers when you are finished.